I'm looking down on that screen. We have White House Secretary Karoline Leavitt speaking. I promise we'll get to Tanya Yamas's interview with Vanessa Rufus, but let's get to Karoline Leavitt, who just got there to the podium. Let's take a listen in.
They can to keep them safe after the horrific attack in Boulder, and also the 2 Israeli embassy staff who were targeted just last week here in our nation's capital.
Yeah, we have seen 2 horrific cases of anti-Semitic violence in our country in the last 2 weeks, and it is unacceptable to this president and this White House. And rest assured, to all Jewish Americans across our great country, this president has your back, and he's not going to allow anyone to take part in violent terrorism. It's acts of terrorism in our country, and that's what this case in Boulder, Colorado is being investigated as. Kudos to our FBI director, Kash Patel, for immediately calling this a targeted terrorist attack. That's clearly what it was. But I'd also like to point out that this administration has done more than any administration to curb this violence and to curb illegal immigration. We secured our border in record time, but we're also tightening up our visa process and our legal immigration process. And we know that this individual, this terrorist, was allowed into this country by the previous administration, was foolishly given a tourism visa, and then was illegally allowed to stay. These individuals are going to be deported, and we're not going to tolerate such violence in our country.
Karoline told me that Donald Trump was waiting until the talks between Russia and Ukraine today in order to make a judgment on whether or not Vladimir Putin wanted peace. Those talks have happened. Where does he stand, and is he willing to impose additional sanctions?
I'll let the president speak on that.
Today, the Russian and Ukrainian delegations met in Istanbul, but the Turkish president is suggesting that it's high time that leaders, President Erdogan, President Trump, President Putin, and President Zelensky meet in Istanbul. Is that something that President Trump would support and would be partaking?
Well, the president has said he's open to it if it comes to that, but he wants both of these leaders and both sides to sit down at the table together. And we saw them do that at the urging of President Trump today. But as for how the president feels about those talks and what took place there, I'll let him speak on that.
What's the president's reaction to that Ukrainian drone attack, stunning drone attack on Russian air base? I'm sure he saw that. What's his reaction?
Well, look, the reaction is this war needs to come to an end. And this war has been brutal from both sides. Too many people have died. And the president wants this war to end at the negotiating table. And he's made that very clear to both leaders, both publicly and privately.
Are the trade negotiations still ongoing after last week's pause? And how are the negotiations with the European Union to avoid that 50% tariff?
Well, the European Union came to the table thanks to President Trump's threat of tariffs. And now we are seeing that they are negotiating in good faith with our delegation. So we remain hopeful and optimistic that a deal can be struck with the European Union. As you know, we are in discussions with many other countries around the world as well who understand the need to cut a good deal with this president and the administration. And Secretary Bessay and Secretary Lutnick, Ambassador Greer continue to work around the clock on this.
These attacks are concerning. We saw the firebombing of the Pennsylvania governor's mansion, as well as what happened over at the museum here in Washington, and now this most recent attack. Is there concern in the administration that there could possibly be some sleeper cells here in the United States? What type of pattern is the administration looking at as far as terrorist cells?
Well, there's certainly a concern that the previous administration allowed way too many terrorists and illegal immigrants into the interior of our country, and that's why the Department of Homeland Security is working overtime to arrest, detain, and deport as many illegal criminals and terrorists that we can in the United States of America, and any act of violence will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law.
President Trump has talked about wanting to meet with President Xi for a long time. Kevin Hassett over the weekend previewed a possible conversation between the two of them, including possibly this week. Has that call been scheduled, and what is the president hoping to get out of that call with President Xi?
To the cameras.
Well, sure. She asked about the potential call with President Xi. I can confirm that the two leaders will likely talk this week. And as always, when there are foreign leader calls, we will provide a readout of those calls.
Karoline,
See you guys later. Thank you.
Thank you, Karoline.
You're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. That was White House Secretary Karoline Leavitt as she spoke with reporters in Washington, D.C. All right, let's get back now. I teased it earlier. I did a big tease.
That's how it works here, though.
It works. It does. This is Live Impact News where, hey, look, I may be in the middle of an intro and then something live happens that we feel like warrants your attention, so we send you right there.
Yep.
But Tom Yamas will be proud of that intro. I think.
Yeah, I think he would be proud of us.
Pretty good intro.
We have to direct our news where the news is happening.
Yeah.
He'd be proud.
Yeah. Hey, shout out to Tom.